Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Arrow. My name's Chandler.
My name's Tony.
Tony, we've got a special guest with us today.
We do, a very special guest.
Does our special guest want to introduce himself?
Hello, my name is Tim, but you might know me better as Hello Future Me over on YouTube. I make lots and lots of Avatar content, which if you've seen, thank you very much. And I'm really happy to here to talk about my favorite episode, which is the Southern Raiders. Yeah.
Tim has been on our podcast once before. He was talking with us about Zuko Alone, I think it was.
Yes,
right?
It was. Another really good episode.
Yeah. You always come for like the bangers.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, I mean, like they're two of kind of the best episodes in the series. You know, how could I miss them? Pretty much.
Well, we really appreciate you coming back on. I know that the Arrow Nation appreciates you coming back on. I know a lot of them watch your videos, and I think even some of them are here because of your videos.
Yeah, actually.
So it's really appreciated to always have you. Before we get started, I just want to remind the nation to follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at The Arrowpod. Thanks to Marc for helping us out with our Instagram and all that stuff. And we got a YouTube channel. We post stuff on there sometimes.
Eventually, we will be posting more.
Well, we're still trying to figure out exactly how all that stuff's going to work. Tim, what about you?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm just called Hello Future Me on Twitter. On Instagram, Tim Hickson, HFM, over on Instagram. And of course, Hello Future Me, that's my big channel. That's my YouTube channel where I post everything and talk about Avatar if you're interested in that. And also, thank you very much for allowing me to do this. I have a book coming out. Actually.
Yeah,
it's called On Writing and World Building. I make writing content on YouTube, and a lot of it I talk about Avatar and why it's written so well, why its world building is so great, and the characters who are all fantastic. I think you'll agree,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so there's a lot of Avatar stuff in there if you want to go check that out.
Awesome. So why don't we get right on into this episode with the explosive opening that we have for this episode? Literally, there's 3 seconds of peace, and then just explosions.
So this episode's
actually a bomb.
Yeah, exactly. So this episode's a banger, and it starts with a bang.
Yeah.
So we end up getting just a surprise attack between Aang and the gang, and there's just some explosions going on. Mm-hmm. And turns out the airships are there, so apparently they've been followed or something happened, but Azula is here to fight.
Mm-hmm. I always forget that Azula opens up this episode.
Yeah.
You never
think
of this
You
episode
sort of think
of
it
Azula.
starts at like the we're on the cliff faces and like talking about with Zuko and Katara.
Yeah, their whole conflict and stuff.
Yeah. You sort of forget about that.
I literally always forget about that.
Yeah. So it's like this little snippet of action that's happening, and then it's like, oh yeah, this happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that scene, it's not like a small scene. Like it lasts for about 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, why do we always forget about it? It's just because it's not the primary thing of the episode. But Azula is basically like, I'm gonna kill you, Zuko.
Yeah,
it's you're 6 minutes into the episode before you actually get to the campfire.
Yeah,
basically.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
But, yeah, I really feel like that shows like how powerful the Hokatara arc and the emotions and everything that we learned from her in this episode, like how important it really is and how it dwells with you. Mm-hmm. Because it's like we can ignore all this like other stuff that happened because this is the main focus and this is like the meat of the episode.
Yeah, definitely. But
yeah,
moving forward, Azula attacks. It's literally just Azula and some firebenders, but really it's just Azula. Like the other firebenders don't matter.
I don't even think we see any other firebenders.
No, it's like we don't, but we see like fire blasts in the
coming
background.
out of random
That's
airships.
True.
That's about it. It's like they're there, but we don't really see them.
Azula and Zuko have a small duel.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting moments where obviously Azula falls out of the sky and Zuko, they're both falling out of the sky, and of course Zuko gets saved by Appa and the gang, and
he kind of looks back,
yeah, he sees his sister falling, and she's like, she's not gonna make it, and then of course she does because she propels herself over to the cliff fall,
of course,
and which I always find that detail really interesting because it sort of shows the brotherly sister relationship, which is always in the background there.
Right.
And he has this weird sympathy and love for her.
Yeah.
I always really liked that.
I wrote that down in my notes too. I was like, Zuko seems kind of like a little sad about that. He's like, she's not gonna make it. He's kind of wondering like, can I go back and save her? Like, is there something I should have done or could have done? And then she makes it back, and he's like, why did I even worry?
So of course, Azula's gonna that's her. That's who she is. She's a survivor. She's going to figure out a way out of any situation. It seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Right before that moment, which I found pretty interesting, was when Zuko was falling out of the sky. Did you guys see who was the one that grabbed him?
No.
It's Katara.
It was Katara.
Oh,
yeah.
it was?
Yeah,
I was not paying attention.
We've had this conflict in the last couple of episodes that we've seen between them two, and how aggressive she is towards him. And even before that, when he saved her from the falling rocks, from the explosions and everything, she didn't appreciate what he was doing. It was more of like, what are you doing? Like, get off of me. You saved me already, whatever. And giving him attitude, even in this time of conflict. But at the end of the day, I mean, she's the one that reaches out and grabs him and pulls him onto Appa. Not anybody else that was. I mean, Sokka was there. I mean, Suki was there. Like, anybody else could have done something, but she was the one that did.
Here's the question, though. Here's the question: is this hashtag Zutara, or is this just? No, I'm kidding.
There's,
is this?
There's like there's several fans. Even how many years has it been now since the show ended? Like 2000. It ended in 2008, right? Or 2008 or 2009. It's been like almost 10 years, and people are still very adamant that Zuko and Katara had more chemistry, which I 100% believe that they did. But that's not the point. It just didn't end like that. I think we can all move on.
Sure, Chan. Sure.
Did you just open? Just say I thought they had more chemistry, but let's move on.
I want to acknowledge the truth, but
open up the floodgates and just walk away.
It's a done deal. It's a done deal.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think that says more about Katara's character as like kind of a very empathetic and like even if she hates someone, she'll still save them, or does that say something more about underlying feelings for Zuko in your mind as a Zutara shipper?
I mean, I want to say, at least, I just believe that's who Katara is. I mean, she's throughout this entire series, she's that motherly figure. She's a protector, and I feel like in this instance, it was kind of just like I put my emotions aside and I help when I can, and it was more of like me personally. I didn't see that feelings, but I definitely feel like that's just who she is. I mean, at the end of the day, even though she seems to hate him and criticizes every little thing that he does, and the trust that everybody has for him, like, she still wants to help, or at least make sure he's safe so she can hate him some more.
Right. Well, I also think that there's this piece of Katara looking out for Aang's best interests too, right? That she always told Aang, she's like, I'm going to go along with whatever you want, even though I don't trust him. If this is what you think is right, then I'll do it. True. And so she's seeing this as like, everyone in the group thinks this is the common good, and so I'm not just going to let this guy take a fall because of my feelings for him, if he's really the key for us to be able to defeat the Fire Lord by the end of the summer.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit of both of that.
Something else that kind of hurts in this attack of Azula, though, for me, is seeing the Western Air Temple get
destroyed.
Yeah. It's like this old ancient thing, which is like one of the last parts of Aang's culture that still kind of stands that he can sort of immerse himself in, and just like there were just bombs just destroying it. And I'm pretty sure that by the end of it, one of the things fall, although that might be...
I think so. One of the upside-down buildings, it just collapses.
By the way, I think a few episodes ago, we argued as to what that building was called, what that type of building. It's called a pagoda.
Pagoda?
Yes.
Okay.
It's called a pagoda.
A pagoda?
Yeah.
Like, is that like in world term, or is that a term that from our world? I'm not familiar with that.
Our world, yeah. Like, it's from like Japanese buildings that are in that style. They're called pagodas. I don't know if you've ever played like Pokemon Gold or Pokemon Silver, but the tower that you climb up to catch Ho-Oh, that's a pagoda.
No. Oh, okay. All right then.
We argued about that several weeks back.
The most important issues of discussion.
Right.
Exactly.
I also think that the destruction of this temple, this like the cynic in me is like it's also like serving to like separate the group again, right? Separate it to the core members plus Suki, to be able to like, oh, they're going to be the ones who are going to be the ones that we're going to be focusing on. Like, we're not going to be focusing on Hakoda and what's even his name from the prison. Who is he? And the Duke and Haru and all of this is their last appearance.
Yeah. In Boiling Rock, the other prisoner that comes out, I even forgot he wasn't in this episode. Since like we said, like we forgot that period of time in the very beginning. I feel like what I really got out of that beginning piece is just like that split of the group and them having to split up. They take the other airship, the hidden airship that they had, and they take Appa. And I was like, hey, he's there.
Yeah,
I had no clue.
Yeah.
Again, forgetful.
Yeah. It's and then of course the last moment of this kind of scene. I don't know if you have any notes on it, but what Azula does to propel herself and cling onto the wall. You know what she clings herself onto the cliffside with? Her hair clip.
Yeah, her hair clip. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is just a nice little kind of. She's really resourceful.
So, yeah, like I said, surviving at like any means possible. Like she's going to, like, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Tim, I recently watched, I think like a week ago, I watched your video about Azula's psychology.
Oh, my God.
I listened to, I watched / listened to it in like multiple different sittings. It's a good one. But your point about her hair.
It's the best video I've ever made.
Her hair and her symmetry. The symmetry of her hair kind of representing like her mental state at that point. And I mean, you know, I thought it was striking that we saw her without Ty Lee and without Ty Lee and May. And the way that like Azula feels without those two around is already different before kind of her downward spiral that we see later. Yeah, no,
definitely. I've always had this weird feeling about Azula that, like, it's really hard to put into words, but she sort of has this, obviously she looks royal and she keeps royal, but like she doesn't rely on any of the resources really given to her to take down her enemies. Every time she takes down an enemy, it's nearly always just her abilities by herself.
Yeah.
Like, which I really like. It's just, she's not someone just sending minions.
Yeah,
exactly. Even though she's high in the royal status, she doesn't rely on just sending out like hordes of soldiers to do her bidding. Like, that's
and
all of her
really
accomplishments
refreshing as a villain. It makes her really refreshing as a villain that she doesn't send minions or she doesn't send the soldiers. she's like, I'm gonna do the dirty work. Like, this is my thing that I'm gonna do. I really
like even with these airships, like she goes out unnecessarily almost.
right.
Just because she can.
Yeah, exactly. Bringing a little back to that is when she was fighting with Zuko. We got to see Zuko handle himself pretty well. I feel like in any other term or any other fight that they've had, she's overpowered him very quickly. And
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like is that, like you said, like just like a glimpse of her downward spiral at that point in time where she's losing everything she's had. I mean, she just lost her friends, and that was like, even though she treated him less than her, like that's all she really had to connect with. And at this point in time, like, who does she have? Her father. And I mean, we already understand that relationship. So I feel like she was fighting more with emotions almost, and that Zuko was able to kind of get the better of her, or at least match her.
Right. Yeah, Zuko's really calm and collected throughout this entire fight. I don't think does he even speak during that fight? Does he say anything? I don't.
No, I don't believe
so.
If
he did, it wasn't
right before, and then no, he jumped off the airship, rose on one. Yeah.
There's a really interesting detail, is that, like, I think that you're right that there's kind of like Azula being a bit less controlled and more emotional, but there's sort of an interesting parallel here. I've just got a shot up here of she's pretty much throwing punches of fire at him, and he is very controlled in how he pretty much dismantles it, which is very reminiscent of their final fight, where she's just throwing everything and he just parts it, guards against it, and he just pretty much dismantles every attack she throws at him in a very controlled sense, which is part of him learning that new way of fire bending and learning to control himself and his emotions and master himself. So I think part of it is Azula kind of maybe fracturing a little bit, but I think a large part of it is Zuko after the Firebending Masters and Zuko controlling his emotions and himself, which is why he's not fighting emotionally here. When he's pushing aside from the fire, he's almost entirely emotionless, whether she's like, angry face while she's doing it.
Right. Yeah.
So it's definitely a lot more of what Zuko's been able to learn in the last episodes, and how much control he has over these emotions, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna move forward because we're gonna be here all day. But we got to move forward to like the actual subject of the episode here today. The group is in the camp, and Sokka's kind of making a toast to Zuko for being their hero. And there's like a lot of jokes thrown around in here. Like Sokka's like, whoever would have known that the jerk who was chasing us all around the world, I don't think this is exactly what he said, but like the jerk who was chasing us all around the world would be our hero today. And they were even making jokes like, it feels like old time being camping again. And then Zuko's like, if you want it to feel more like old times, I could like chase you around while I'm screaming. And,
they try to capture you.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to find that, having that good time, that the good feels, except for Katara. I mean, she's the one that kind of cuts that down immediately. And we kind of get into a little more of how she's feeling about this. So Katara doesn't really believe that he deserves any of this praise that they're giving him because of his past actions, or simply because being the Fire Nation. And Zuko even confronts her about that, saying like, I don't think this is fair, like the way you're treating me, like everybody else trusts me, but you don't. And we finally get into where Katara starts mentioning, I'm the one that trusted you first. Like back in Ba Sing Se, like I'm the first one to trust you, and you betrayed that. And these emotions and this wall that Katara has up is still there and still present, and she doesn't seem like she's going to be backing down anytime soon.
Yeah, I think, and then Katara's basically saying like, you could bring back my mother. You could. What did she say before that?
Oh, take back Ba Sing.
Yeah, take back Ba Sing Se, or bring back my mother. And so the interesting part about that is that what it's showing to me is that Katara is blaming Zuko for the fall of Ba Sing Se, which that's fair. But then you're finding that she's kind of projecting all of her anger at the Fire Nation towards this one person, who we find out is the leader of the Southern Raiders, and then she's projecting all of that anger passively again at Zuko.
Yes.
And so it sets up this really kind of dynamic where Katara has this anger pent up that she's not letting out, and that she has to put it somewhere. And so the person who resembles most closely who she's angry at is him.
Definitely, yeah. And I did a video on this, which is another one of my the proud projects I'm most proud of, which is talking pretty much about that we see Katara kind of slipping into the Jet mindset here.
Yeah, there was
where
a comparison later.
Jet pretty much projected all of his hatred for what happened to his family onto any Fire Nation soldier, that he met. And it's that sort of thing that happens in war. That was kind of what I liked about this episode, is that we see, victims of the war kind of projecting their personal hurts onto every part of an entire state, of an entire nation. And it becomes very much this us and them mentality that's very, very difficult to get over and wrestle with. Which I really liked. I really liked that kind of nuance there.
I also, I agree with that. Also, that video is fantastic if you haven't watched it.
Absolutely amazing.
The title of it's called The Cycle of War, right?
The Cycle of War. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
There's some really interesting symmetry actually in the part which I'll touch on when we get to it. It's later on.
Right. But so Zuko kind of realizing that this anger is being projected kind of wrongly toward him, goes to kind of consult with Sokka, which is where we get one of my favorite comedic moments of the show, where we see Suki and Zuko both walking towards Sokka's tent, and Zuko's like, "Oh, do you need to talk to Sokka about something?" She's like, "Nothing at all." And they were gonna have some alone time.
Doesn't he swallow a flower?
Yeah, he swallows a flower.
He swallows a flower.
He has it in his mouth and just whoop.
Yeah. And so So this scene here sets up one of my favorite things about this episode is that we see the flashback of the Southern Raid from Sokka's eyes, and the thing that I love about this flashback about the Southern Raid is that it's spread out evenly between 3 different parts from 3 different perspectives of the entire episode, and I really love that.
Yes, so we get piece by piece of this story, and it's visually we're able to see it throughout this entire episode of exactly what was going on and why they were there and how it affected them or what they even saw.
Yeah.
It's interesting because he asks, "What do you remember of your mother?" Is that what he asks? He asks about what you remember of your mother.
So he said, "Tell me about your mother." Yeah.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I couldn't remember if he just asked about what happened to their family when they were young. No, and there's an interesting moment in the episode, "The Runaway," where we actually learn that Sokka doesn't remember his mother's face.
Right.
Which I thought was kind of an interesting thing because he doesn't see his mother in this, and the fact that she doesn't really appear in kind of like the disappearance of. She doesn't even appear in the disappearance of his mother. He just heard it happened. It's kind of reminiscent of this, thing where Sokka doesn't really have a connection with his mum. He was too young, and all he remembers is Katara's face as the woman who took care of him.
Right.
I didn't even notice that.
Really cool.
Yeah. No, I noticed that too, and I think it even goes to show, like, the last thing that Sokka remembers is throwing the boomerang at the ships, right? He picks up his boomerang and throws it at the ships. Meanwhile, Yan Ra is in his house killing his mother, presumably burning her. And so, the last time that Sokka would have seen her, like if there was like a funeral or anything like that, if it's anything like our world, if she was like so badly burned when she was killed, like he might not have even gotten to see her one last time.
That's true. Yeah.
And like adding to the what did she look like? I literally cannot remember. They don't have photographs yet in this world, so yeah.
No. Wow. No, it's pretty crazy. And I think by this time the southern the southern water tribe is like already decimated. Like they don't.
Yeah, they've
got no people left pretty much.
Exactly.
Because they used to be like a huge city at one point. But actually, a really interesting thing about the Southern Water Tribe is that even though we never see it, there are lots of little Southern Water Tribes.
Yeah.
And that's not the only one. There's dozens of them.
Oh, well, he just confirmed something that I've complained about on this show multiple times in the past. I was like, the Southern Water Tribe consists of 11 people.
No, it's because
it's like pockets.
There's pockets in the comic North and South. We learn about the Council of Tribesmen. So there's like lots of tribes of and chiefs, and there is like one main city, but there are lots of different cities, and that's one of the differences between the North and the South about how their power is spread. But that's another topic. So we'll
I mean that's it's just in this series we only hear about this one little community because their grandmother running away from the northern to the southern tribe. It was this one when they took out all the waterbenders. It was this one where that ship was lifted into the sky and everything, and even the Southern Raiders and this whole arc right here or this story. It's like in this one. So every story that we get or anybody outside is some way connected to this specific little tribe.
Right. Well, I mean, it would make sense because the entire story is told through the eyes of these two Southern Water Tribes people, which is Sokka and Katara.
I'm saying even her grandmother running away, and it was this one. Like she had a connection to another main character that we ran into, which was a master and things like that.
Right. Yeah. But interesting.
So from move on. Yeah. So from this flashback, we actually get Zuko being able to recognize who exactly raided their village at this point, and even took Katara's mother's life. It was the Southern Raiders because they had the Seahawks,
the Sea Ravens,
yeah. Sea Ravens. Yeah, they had the Sea Ravens. So he was able to identify them, and he goes up to Katara and lets her know, I know who killed your mother. And they want to go out and kind of. Katara makes up her mind and wants to go out and take revenge. She sees this as an opportunity that she never had before. She never knew who committed this crime. And she's had this hate and this sadness within her this entire series. I mean, she's mentioned it multiple times. And so now she feels like she has to do this.
Yeah. One thing that I think is like so out of character in this moment, I mean, maybe it's not, but I would think that at this point, Zuko would be past the idea of revenge. At where he is in his life now, and so the it's always bothered me a little bit that he's the one who offers up the possibility of revenge to Katara.
It almost seems a bit more Soccerish, doesn't it? Like Sokka sort of always sticks with like Sokka right up until the last episode. You know, he's just like, we're gonna kill the Fire Lord. That's the only option. You know, it's just gotta be done.
right, yeah.
But I guess I can totally see where you'd see that might be a little bit out of character for him. But I'm not sure if I remember the scripting rightly. I don't think he ever actually suggests like taking Yon-Ra out. I think he just wants to bring her face to face with the man who killed her mother. I'm not.
Yeah.
I have to check on the script on that because I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. What he mentions is that as they try to take Appa and Aang's trying to stop him, he mentions that it's just like she needs closure in this point. So, and Katara is actually the one that mentions like revenge, that this might be revenge, or Aang brings it up, and she's like, maybe that's what I need.
But then when Aang kind of tries to talk them out of it, Zuko's like, this isn't Air Nomad preschool, and he's like tantalizing him.
Yeah.
And it just like leads me to believe that he's more on the side of like, oh, let's get revenge on this guy, as opposed to like, let's come face to face with him, have a conversation with him, you know, speak civilly, and also like learn something from that experience. Like it doesn't seem like that's where he's at, which is, yeah.
I mean, maybe this is just the way that the only way he feels like he can make amends with Katara and finally be on her side.
Right.
Yeah. Then again, like later in the episode, when she bloodbends the captain of the
he looked horrified for a minute.
Yeah, he looks horrified.
Almost
almost like he wasn't actually expecting her to kill or to really hurt someone.
Yeah. Well,
so
isn't that the first time he's ever seen that ability?
He's never seen it before either. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's true. I mean, it'd be shocking to see that.
Yeah, it's like, I had no clue you were capable of that.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, no, totally right there.
It was like this one time. I was at a party like a week or two ago, and I was squeezing a cup. Oh, it was at Lawrence's birthday party. I was squeezing a cup, and then at that very moment, I put a hole in my cup that was empty. But then Lawrence's cup burst and started spilling everywhere, and I was like, I have voodoo powers. and so if everyone was like in such horror at that party, no one was actually in horror. But if everyone was in such horror at that party that I had voodoo powers, imagine like seeing someone do that to an actual person. I know that felt
Beautiful
very
comparison.
off topic. In my head, it was very much like congruent with what we were talking about. I'm sorry.
But yeah, it's that shock value of like understanding that Katara she's a powerful bender, but never understanding that, you know, a water bending can go that far.
Mm-hmm.
So we do see that like instance where he pauses, stares at her, but then kind of continues straight in with the attack, where it's just like do you remember her? Like you're going to,
right?
And as she pins him to the floor.
Can we talk about the fact that she's bloodbending too, like really quickly? Like that's like I feel like
it's the only other moment in the show that she's bloodbends apart from Puppet Master.
Mm-hmm.
I really see this. I'll go for it.
No, sorry, Tom. Go on.
I really see this as a fit of rage. Last time we've seen her, like you said, this is the only other time we see her bloodbend. Last time we saw her bloodbend, she promised that she would never do this again. I mean, she was horrified that she even did it in the first place. But she's in such a fit of rage, believing that she's come face to face with a man that's murdered her mother, and I mean, all this anger and sadness that she's had and held on to is finally here, that I feel like she just lets go, and she's willing to do this, willing to torture him and contort him and pin him to the floor.
Because it basically is torture. Like,
Yeah. No,
there's
100%.
this 14-year-old girl engaging in like torturing. She's 14. I think she's 14.
14. Same age as Azula, I believe.
Yeah.
I thought it was
Zuko's 16. Zuko's 16. Aang's 12. Sokka is
15.
15, and she's 14.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, okay, that's interesting. It's not exactly 100% clear whether Zuko is actually inviting her to kill.
Yeah.
100% sure.
Yeah. That was definitely.
He's definitely inviting her to find revenge, though. I think that's pretty clear. Like, revenge is obviously a dark thing. Is it out of his character? That's a really interesting question at this point.
At this point in time, I think it is, just because like the road that he's taking of redemption. But like I mentioned before, I really think it's more of Zuko believing that this is the only way that he can reconnect or gain Katara's trust and truly be a part of the team without her antagonizing him and looming over everything he does.
Right. I mean, I think that there's also a little bit of a tell in his last line of dialogue, which we'll get to later, but he was just like, what are you going to do against my father? You know, like, and so like that idea of like Zuko is knowing that, like, Zuko is just this person who accepts that killing is a part of getting to where we need to go. But I want to talk about that line of dialogue a little bit later. But Tim, what were you about to say?
I think there's a nice bit of, so one of the things that I really like here is the nuance when it comes to like, okay, well, Zuko might be a changed person and he might have chosen a different path, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have these other desires which he still struggles with, or other feelings, or, you know, it's still clearly very easy for him to understand the place that she's in. And it's why when Katara goes, I knew you wouldn't understand Aang, because he doesn't understand. He doesn't have those same drives and feelings and angers that Zuko had on this weird level. Zuko's the only one who understands Katara in that same sense, in terms of what this war has kind of done to them both. It's both ruined them as people in a weird sense. So I like that kind of nuance, that even though he's a changed person, he can still understand and empathize with her. And that would be why he's making that choice. To kind of take her to the Southern Raiders. Yeah.
What you're saying right now is actually making me think about the last couple of adventures that we've had, going to the Sun Warriors temples and to the Boiling Rock, and how the writers actually just put Zuko in the exact same place that the other characters are in, right? Or put the other characters in places where Zuko can understand. Sokka's drive to get Zuko to go with him to the Boiling Rock is saying, I need to regain my honor, right? Or going to find the Sun Warriors, it was, Aang needs to learn firebending, and apparently I do too. You know, it's just kind of like let's put him in the exact same position, or put people in situations that he's been in before.
Yeah. That's a great comparison. I'd never seen it.
I also, one of my favorite parts about this episode is the culmination of it is at the end. We'll talk about it in full when it gets to the end. But it's set up here where Aang's his moralistic speech of, you know, anger and frustration and all these things are hard. I lost my people, but we've got to forgive. And you know, shows would just go through with that theme, but they do something really interesting with the idea of you always have to forgive, or you can always get over trauma if you trust with your friends and stuff like that. If you trust in your friends and you allow yourself to love. They do something really interesting. So they set up here in the script when Zuko
She's trying to get
says,
Appa,
it said, you know, we're going to go find the man who took my mother from me. And Aang's like, what do you think this will accomplish? And she goes, I knew you wouldn't understand. And he says, I do. I lost all my people. And he says, this is closure and justice. And she said, that's what I need. Maybe that's what he deserves. You sound just like Jet. You know, Zuko says, that's cute. This isn't Air Temple Preschool when he suggests not going with revenge. This is the real world. And there's that kind of like, we kind of get that because Aang is very idealistic. Like, he's so idealistic And this whole episode challenges who he is, kind of his whole moral philosophy that's guided his actions throughout the series. And I don't think anyone's and the thing is, I don't think anyone in the audience at all is listening to Aang and going, oh yeah, Katara, you should just forgive right now. Like, is anyone thinking that?
At this point in time, we do take the point of Katara. I mean, we see it from her perspective and her side as we get more and more information, especially from the flashbacks, that it's just like, this man took my mother. And we felt that. We felt that since the beginning. She's mentioned it multiple times, and that's the way she's been able to connect with other people, with Haru, with Jet, with Zuko, sharing her story, sharing her loss, and how this war has affected her. So this isn't it's not something we just learned and kind of try to process now. It's something that we've been following the last 3 seasons.
Right. One thing that I really liked was when right before they leave and Aang is kind of giving his whole like, oh, I know you tried to steal Appa, but I forgive you kind of thing. But the last thing that he says to her is like, when you face him, like, let your anger out, but then let it go, right? And yeah, I mean, like, just in therapy with like my clients, I think I've said that exact line to people, like, I don't want you to bottle up your emotions. Like, it's not good. Like, when people tell you not to be angry, I want to go against that, and I don't want to tell you to not be angry, but I do want to tell you to be angry, but then don't let anger be your identity, right? And so I really kind of like that little that snippet there, just because, I don't know, I think maybe half of my therapeutic skills come from watching this show. I think like a week ago I just watched someone. I had someone who was having some issues with a parent, and then I had them watch the scene where Zuko confronts Ozai on the day of Black Sun, and then they came back the next week and they were like, man, watching that a couple of times, things make so much sense to me right now. And I'm like, let's talk about that. So I don't know. It's just really interesting how often I find myself kind of watching the show over and saying like, oh, I definitely said that to someone last week.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely easy to just pass over that instance. Is that how
prescriptions work now?
What?
Is that
you give them a prescription of, I'm going to give you a prescription of Day of Black Sun Part 2 and the Southern Raiders.
That episode of Naruto where he hugs where he hugs his evil self. Yeah, like all of those things. It's like that's what I give to my people.
Best kind of medicine. But yeah, I think it's very easy to skip over those points. And I agree with you. It's just being able to feel. And I feel like that's what eventually Katara kind of goes into with her actions and everything. But yeah, I enjoy that.
Actually, it's interesting though, because we'll get to this later, because chronological.
Yeah. Will we get to it later? I don't know.
Keeping in mind the please don't choose revenge, let your anger out, then let it go. She doesn't do that in the end. I don't think she does.
Okay, yeah. It's more of an expression of what she's feeling, but she doesn't forgive.
Right. I think. Well, I wrote down kind of what I thought about it, but yeah, we'll talk about it when we get there. Yeah,
we still have a lot to talk about it.
Well, we talked about her being on the ship with the current leader of the Southern Raiders, who she bloodbends, and he tells her about Yan Ra.
So apparently he gave up his position 4 years ago. That's why they had that whole mix-up where it's like he wasn't the one who committed this crime. He took this position just a few years back, and so they were able to find who actually did this.
Yeah. So we get introduced to Yan Ra, and the easiest description I could kind of give about Yan Ra as when we meet him, he's kind of just a loser. Right? Like he's just...
I mean, I mean, what from Tim's video, if I remember correctly, I mean, the perspective that we get on him, it's done purposefully. I mean, throughout this entire time, I at least had a vision of like, you know, what we saw in those flashbacks. This like powerful like leader of the Southern Raiders, like this soldier who you know kills people and raids and things like that. And when we get into it, he's just I mean, a simple man at this point. He doesn't seem threatening.
Mm-hmm.
No, he's a coward. Like,
Yeah.
ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's sort of the thing, is that they sort of try to break down these people and oh, I
Uh-oh.
lost.
Oh, there.
Oh yeah,
there you go.
we lost
Sorry.
connection for a quick second, but
Yeah.
we're good. We're good.
Cool.
Yeah, that they're ultimately pathetic, which is why the producers at one point did a lot of the villains throughout Avatar and the Legend of Korra end up being humiliated.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
At the end. Nope, have we lost
Oh
connection
yeah,
again?
that's.
No, I
Oh,
think
we got
I
it.
think we're good.
I think we got it.
No, we're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on
Sorry.
that perspective thing about this is where the episode like gets really good. Like every single part of this, every second of this, I love with all of my heart. The perspective thing is that we're led to sort of pretty much see Yon-Ra from the perspective of essentially what would be and you know, a very human person. Like he's given relationships,
Yeah.
and he's given you know, everyday normal things to do, to go to the market.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing very kind of humble, simple things. He's cleaning. He's gardening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Willing to give
And
something else to his mother because
then-
she alternative food. I mean, she didn't like something. He's willing
His
to go
tomatoes
out.
were too hard for her teeth, and I'm like, is it really bad tomatoes or really bad teeth? Because I don't know if I've ever met a tomato.
Yeah.
Do you meet tomatoes? I don't know if I've ever met a tomato
You
that
mate-
was like that hard.
Tomato. And then like we don't see where Katara and Zuko are. We see them like you do an enemy. Like we're following him, and he senses someone's around him. Like the protagonist sense that they're about to be ambushed.
Mm-hmm.
Which I really like. It sort of puts them in the position of the antagonist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is
I
really
noticed.
cool.
I noticed that as well. It's more of a like he was prey, and they were hunting him down, and we even go all the way up to the point where they attack him and pin him down, and he tries to defend himself, but he can't.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, that perspective or that image of this monster becomes just a coward, like you said.
Yeah, and there's never any kind of there's never any sense that like we're built up for the first 2/3 of the episode that she's going to be facing up against this Ozai to Zuko type figure.
Yeah.
And then when we meet him, it's just nothing like that. And there's almost this kind of sense that she can't be angry at him because he's so pathetic. Which
Right.
she kind of says that later on. She says, "You're pathetic. You know, you're just this little man who hurts people."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he even goes as far as saying like, "Oh, I took your mother, take mine instead," and that just like really illustrates as to like
What kind of person he is.
yeah, the kind of person he is, the kind of emptiness that is inside of him. That there's nothing really, like he doesn't really do anything for a purpose, right? That there's no like real purpose behind his motive. He doesn't have motivation, right? And so we would even
There's the
be
sort of-
like, what?
No, sorry, continue. I interrupted you.
Oh, I was just saying, like, we would think that his motivation, even back at the southern raid, wouldn't have really been anything more than just like, you know, oh, we're capturing waterbenders or we're killing waterbenders. But there's no like real rhyme or reason as to why he would take prisoners or not take prisoners. And I'm just assuming that at some point he was taking prisoners because it seemed like Katara's mom believed that she was going to be a prisoner.
I mean, yeah. Well, we even saw the whole episode.
And then, well, he said, I'm not
Puppet
taking
Master.
prisoners today, but like maybe the other episode,
Yeah.
the Waterbending Masters, yeah.
So in the past, they did.
yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah, there's this sense that he amounted to nothing. That like these powerful with their people eventually amount to nothing. Nothing comes of them in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I really like. Imagery wise, and it's really hard to show on a podcast, but I talk about this a lot in the video. There's some fantastic use of imagery and symmetry in the episode, where in the flashbacks we get these upward angle shots looking at his single eye, Yonra's single eye, and we get downward shots looking at Katara as a child, and then it's reversed in this scene where they meet, and we get these upwards eyes looking at Katara and downwards looking at Yonra, and there's even like a lightning crack, and like the eyes between Yonra and Katara switch.
Yeah.
Like, there's the symmetry to them. Like, the power imbalance has sort of been entirely reversed. She's the one with the power, having and choosing to show or not show mercy, and he didn't show mercy. Is it going to play through again in this cycle of war kind of thing? Yeah, and I love it. And the sorry, actually, I'll let you talk. Do you have any parts of the imagery that you like in particular?
Personally, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I've always enjoyed this episode, and I've noticed a few of those things, but it wasn't until I watched your episode on this, your YouTube episode on this, where you dove so much deeper than I even understood that there was. Like you said, the perspective, and even with the with her creating the dome of rain, and how that's like the recreation of the dome or the igloo where they live and where all this took place originally.
That's my favorite bit.
Yeah,
because she creates the dome of
Right.
water around them, and of course, her mother died inside the ice dome down Saltwater Tribe.
Right.
It's just awesome.
I also just love that. I mean, I think I said in like the first or second episode of this season, and I've said it a couple times in this season, the way that they use semicircles in this season is just really I don't know, it's just like really great. Like semicircles just make for really great action shots for some reason. I think the one where Aang pushes the explosion from Combustion Man.
Yeah.
This one, I'm even thinking of some moments, like some like kind of like photo-worthy moments in like the last battle between Zuko and Azula in the final episode. But there's just like, I just really like these like semicircles and these like round figures of animation. It's nothing really like, I mean, narratively it means something, but just visually it's just also
Beautiful.
very cool.
Yeah.
Very appealing.
But even in that instance, it was it's such a amazing thing. From, I mean, if we think all the way back to the what was that? The fortune teller episode, when it started raining in that episode, we see her kind of just put a hand up and she blocks just the like slightest rain that's right above her head.
Yeah.
And we've gone all the way into this where she's able to stop a rain completely all the way around her and then make ice shards out of this. And she could have taken him out. Like the bending ability is dramatically changed,
and the amount of
seeing
control that she had to see that there were already spikes in the ground all around him, and there were spikes like, you know, feet or even inches away from his face, or you know, millimeters and centimeters away from his face for our non-American audiences. Do you guys use the metric system down in New Zealand?
I'm sorry, you've been fractured for the last like 20 seconds.
Oh, okay.
I just made a joke about the metric system and the not metric system, because I was saying Katara had a lot of control.
We use the metric system.
Yeah, I was saying Katara has a lot of control because she even had spikes like, you know, feet and inches away from him. But for you, that would be, you know, less than a meter or centimeters away from him.
Less than a meter or centimeters, yes. One of those two.
A meter's like about 3 feet, right? About a yard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Conversions.
Yeah, there's some really interesting dialogue from Katara where she says, you know, but as much as I hate you, I can't do it. Which is interesting because it's preceded by her saying, you know, I always wondered what kind of person could do such a thing, but now I see you. You know, she imagined him as this big evil person. I think I understand. There's nothing inside you, nothing at all. You're sad and pathetic and empty. Which, by the way, oh my gosh, the voice actor, which I always forget her name.
For Katara?
Whatever. It's so well. Yeah. I don't. I'm really bad with like voice actor names because.
Just like last week, we were talking about who were we talking about? I think we were trying to say I think I was saying it was Leonard Nimoy, but it was definitely not Leonard Nimoy. It was George Takei.
Yeah.
Oh, that was on our Instagram, and I was like, it's Leonard Nimoy who voiced the warden in the episode with Haru, and it's like, no, it's George Takei.
Oh, it's Mae Whitman. There we go.
Yeah.
Who also voices Rose and in American Dragon, Jake Long, American Dragon, and Dante Basco voices Jake. So if you're wanting Zutara, then that's the show to have it in.
Yeah, Zutara actually exists in that show, but it's more of a kind of star-crossed lovers storyline.
Going back to that line where Aang is, let your anger out, but let it go.
Yeah.
It's interesting here because I'm not sure she lets out her... I think she lets out her anger, but I don't think she lets go of it. I think she still hates him.
Yeah,
she doesn't forgive him, which of course happens immediately after this. We get that really, really nice interaction between Aang and Zuko. Katara, are you okay? I'm doing fine. Zuko told me what you did or what you didn't do. I'm proud of you. She says, I wanted to do it. I wanted to take out my anger on him, but I couldn't. And I don't know if it was because I was too weak to do it or because I'm strong enough not to.
Right.
Which is just so good. I love that so much.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, when you're in that space, when you're in that like mental space of like, I need to do this to make something right for myself, and then you get there and you can't, I can completely imagine it's like, you're getting all of these messages from a bunch of people probably telling you that was the right decision, you're so strong, you're so brave for not doing that. But I mean, to her, it definitely doesn't feel that way, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, I've dreamed my entire life of meeting this person and making them pay for what they did to me and my family. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't do it, right? Like, this was my conviction.
Yeah.
This is probably like a lifelong goal of Katara's. Maybe not to kill him per se, but like, I think that she's picked up a little bit more anger along the way.
Yeah.
But I think Katara has definitely thought about the day of like, confronting this person and making them understand like the pain that he caused her. And to be able to not fully do that is like, well, I couldn't stay true to myself. I couldn't, accomplish my own goal. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just like you said, she's held on to this for such a long time, and that's what she wanted to do. I mean, she's had that pent up anger, and to finally be able to unleash it here in a full wrath, but holding back. I see how she can think of it as a sign of weakness and not a sign of strength, because I am more powerful than him, and I resisted the urge to, kill him or end him. Mm-hmm. How she can truly see it as I was too weak to be able to take it to the next step. Mm-hmm. At least in her perspective, rather than like how we possibly see it.
Right.
And in kind of like a meta commentary on how shows like this usually work, I talk about this in the video, but part of the reason I love this episode so much is that most shows would have Aang say forgiveness is the only way, mm-hmm. Zuko to say this is about justice and closure, and then Katara to affirmatively go with forgiveness because we should always forgive people. Mm-hmm. It's a moral lesson. But it doesn't do that. It says, I'll never forgive him. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, is difficult to get over. Forgiveness isn't always possible, and sometimes it's more control where we put our hatred for people and less that, but forgiving them would be harmful to us in a way that we have to be careful of, which is where Katara comes in here and forgives Zuko, but doesn't forgive Yon Ra.
Right.
I really loved that kind of nuance.
Right, and that was my final note on the episode, kind of my second to final note on the episode was Katara forgives Zuko, who is the scapegoat of her anger. So she's ready to not put her anger where it doesn't belong. And because she's not necessarily in the presence of Yon Ra all the time, she doesn't have to necessarily be angry all the time, mm-hmm. Because she was projecting all of that anger towards Zuko. So she's ready to not be angry all the time, to not let anger be a part of her identity. And she's ready to kind of judge people on who they are as opposed to like who they're associated with. And so in that sense, I think she does grow and she does learn, and I think this show kind of this episode kind of had the cake and ate it too, in the sense of like she does learn to forgive, but not in the way that I think most of us would have expected, especially a kids show in Nickelodeon in 2007 or 2008 to end. Which is what I really like about the show, not talking down to its audience, who was primarily children at that time.
Like Tim said,
and this kind of moment. Oh, sorry. No, continue.
No, go for it. I was just agreeing with you.
This kind of dynamic between Zuko and Katara is like pretty fundamental to her and Zuko going to take on Azula at the end. Like there's kind of a deeper trust and empathy with one another, that they sort of understand one another. Like I almost don't feel like any other character would have quite understood the emotional difficulty between Zuko and Azula like Katara would have.
Yeah.
In a way. Like imagine if it was Aang or if it was Toph or it was Sokka. I'm not sure any of them would have got kind of the emotional dimension, the familial dynamic behind the duel that was going on in the way Katara would have.
I think earlier on in this episode, we ended up hearing that Sokka agreed with Aang, saying that her plan to take revenge isn't right, or he doesn't agree with it, and Katara just says, "Well, like you didn't love her the way I did,"
right?
And that hit pretty hard. But I think back into what Katara had to deal with, and Zuko and not Zuko, Sokka didn't. I mean, after she lost her mother and after her father left, she had to take on so much more responsibility, and she became a motherly figure, and this is who her identity became. And I can only imagine that at this point in time that she took on these responsibilities that her mother normally did. So it was an everyday endearment, and like something that she constantly had to think about every single day, of what my mother's not here for me, like to do for me, and now I have to do myself, and I also have to do for multiple people to keep this tribe running. So I feel like she was able to dwell in this emotions that she had longer than Sokka did. And I feel like this is why she had such a deeper connection, not just because it's a mother-daughter, relationship, but as well because of how she had a constant reminder. How much she had to change
her response to it.
Exactly.
Which is also why Sokka obviously had more of a connection to Hakoda. Yeah. Like there was a lot more meaning behind, Hakoda leaving meant he had to become what he felt was the man of the village.
Right.
And that's why I think those two relationships, which is really interesting. It's kind of nicer to explore that, what happens to children during war. When the mother leaves, it affects the child. When the father leaves, it affects the son. And in this kind of, older society, how it had to force each of them to change. And that's the culmination here of kind of Katara's arc around that point. And Sokka gets his kind of Hakoda part. He gets that in Day of Black Sun, really. I think that would probably be the culmination of his arc around becoming a leader.
Right. I wonder about a thought that I'm having right now is around kind of Zuko being the only one to be able to, Zuko and Katara only being able to really understand that kind of emotional process that's going on right now. I'm also wondering about when Zuko went back into Sokka's tent and he was like, I don't remember his exact line was, but he was like, I care about what Katara thinks about me. And this like really kind of healthy relationship that we know that they foster because of this, right? Like they foster a really kind of like healthy relationship, a healthy friendship with one another. And thinking about Zuko's relationship with Azula, is this kind of like an analog of like a healthy sibling relationship for Zuko? Is that kind of like the goal here for him?
Possibly. From my perspective, it's not just it's not a sibling relationship that he's trying to foster. It's more of a, I want to be a part of this group.
Well, yeah.
And I want to feel like I belong and not have this individual kind of like I said before, judging every single thing I do, and even my good actions are somehow bad. But I can definitely see where you're coming from, though.
Yeah, that, like his sister, they're the same age, right? Azula and Katara.
Yeah.
And then there's also this person who's the same age as your sister who also seems to be out to get you as well, right? Like not to the same extent, obviously.
There's some similarities, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the final moment
yes.
is what are you going to do when you face my father?
Right.
Which is a hard-hitting question for Aang, because...
Yeah, so we get Aang saying, like, violence is never the answer. And Zuko having that line where it's like, then what are you going to do when you face my father?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh. And me and Chan kind of questioned that on the Day of Black Sun when Aang was supposed to face off with Ozai and have this epic battle. Like, what exactly was supposed to happen there?
What was his plan?
Just disarm him? Like,
well, then what? He's a firebender.
Yeah, knock him out. Like there's I didn't understand what was supposed to happen. What was the resolution?
No matter what prison you in, once the comet came, he would just break out.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. There's no way you were keeping him in there.
Yeah.
So I have nothing else to say about that.
So now we have this thinking point to for Aang to kind of dwell on, and it's like, what am I actually going to do? Like when the time comes, what am I supposed to do?
No idea.
Yeah.
We're here at the end of the episode. I'm wondering what you two are going to rate this episode out of 10, 5 being average.
Eesh. I already know Tim's answer, so.
Yeah, I feel like we already know Tim's answer.
I love this episode so much. I mean, it pulls back so much emotions that we've been able to feel throughout this whole series, and have another solo trip or a duo trip with Zuko going along with someone else, and the imagery, the everything. I love it so much. I have to give it a 10. Yeah,
I think that this episode was just as satisfying, if not just a little less satisfying than the finale of Game of Thrones. I'm just kidding. I want to give this episode a 10 as well. I think it's fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. That's all I can say about it. It's great.
Yeah, well, it's my favorite episode. So top 10 of 10. I've been curious. What's the lowest rated episode for you guys?
Wait, what?
Because I haven't.
What's the lowest grade?
What's the lowest rated episode? What's the lowest rating you guys are given?
Easily The Great Divide.
The Great Divide.
Right, and what about after that? What was there another one that
there was one other one that we gave like a 6.
The Water Tribe or what?
I think I gave another one under a 5. I can't remember.
I don't think so.
I know I have it on the drive, but OBS is going, so I don't want to pull it up. Oh wait, I can pull it up over here. Oh wait, can I? No, I can't.
We're not sure. That's the answer.
That's right. That's fine. That's fine. Well, it's been good fun. I'll look forward to your discussions of the finale, because there's a lot of stuff in the finale.
Oh yeah.
Which I feel a lot of people kind of miss. I've got this video coming out, or at least I'm working on the video about kind of a thematic dimension to the ending that explains energy bending and the really weird quote from the Lion Turtle
that I've never quite completely grasped.
Yeah, to bend the energy in another, your own energy has to be unbendable, or you will be corrupted and destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really they try to do this thing, which I won't go into because we're done with the episode, but there's this interesting thematic dimension which they tried to go into, but I don't think they quite did as clearly as they hoped. But yeah, I'll be interested to see what you pick up there.
And be interested to watch your video.
Yeah, definitely. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You want to give everybody the information for your stuff one more time?
Oh, sure. You can follow me over on Twitter, Hello Future Me. I think I'm Tim Hickson, at Tim Hickson1. That's my actual Twitter handle. Instagram, Tim Hickson, HFM. And my book is on Amazon, On Writing and World Building, Volume 1. If you want to check it out, lots of Avatar stuff in there, including pretty much an entire 2 chapters dedicated to the magic system and bending, magic systems and storytelling, which is basically just all Avatar. Thank you very much for having me on here, though. It's been good fun discussing my favorite episode.
Thank you so much. And for everybody else, my name's Chandler.
My name's Tony.
And we will catch you all next time. Bye.